So, welcome to the Punk CX podcast. We're doing a bit of a special one today because this one's always linked to an announcement that's coming out via a friend of the podcast, which is Pega Systems. And with me today to talk about that is Rebecca Miller, who is a senior manager of product strategy and product marketing for Pega, particularly in the customer service and Pega sales automation space. So it's all quite exciting. But when this comes out, they'll have just announced it probably the day before, maybe 24 hours kind of max, kind of later. And so that's kind of pretty good. So it's going to be fresh, hot off the printing press, as it were. So wanted just to say, Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Adrian. I am excited to be here. I'm doing well, enjoying this summer weather here in Massachusetts. It's high 90s today. Um, but yeah, really excited for this release. We've been very excited to share this with clients first at Pega World and now really rolling it out on a larger basis,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the future of customer experience and where the market is heading.
Awesome. I mean, so can you just give us the big headline? What is the big headline? What has just been announced? What has just been released?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pega has just unveiled a new agentic self-service offering. We call it the self-service agent, and essentially it is embedding enterprise workflows into any service channel. So this is really transforming how service is being delivered across digital, voice, and messaging platforms. And if we dig a little bit deeper, the new offering is really combining our Pega Blueprint offering, which is our online app generation tool that if you haven't checked it out, it's incredible. It basically gets updated on a 2-week basis where you can build out your own enterprise workflows and then actually use the power of our workflow automation and our predictable AI, so our agentic and generative AI capabilities to turn these workflows into agentic self-service experiences.
Okay. Now we're going to unpack some of that, I think.
Okay.
But before we get into the details of it, I mean, I wanted to sort of back up a little bit and just kind of get your view on sort of the other things that are going on in the market and the problems with them thereof. And because your new announcement solution, yes, it's built on your kind of platform and it's an evolution of kind of what you've been doing and the road that you've been following. But what's the problem with the current solutions in the market from Pega's perspective?
So we're seeing agents everywhere. I mean, you look in the news, you kind of go on LinkedIn, every vendor is coming out with AI agents. It's a very, very noisy market.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously a whole lot of demand. I think that the last couple of years, the whole world was talking about generative AI, and now all of a sudden it has shifted to this new tier of agentic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really top of mind, but what we're seeing is that there's still a lot of shortcomings in terms of these AI agents that are out in the market. So if we just take a step back, and we think about self-service over the last decade before the agentic wave, chatbots, even though many organizations tried to use them, were often really simplistic and limited, and they were really only able to answer pretty basic queries. So
Mm-hmm.
now with agentic AI, we're seeing that chatbots, are able to have more natural conversations, but the challenge is they're still being frequently deployed really in silos
Mm-hmm.
and in proprietary chat interfaces, really creating a disconnected customer experience. But at the same time, they're also really introducing a lot of unpredictability and risk for enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
So, for regulated industries or really large brands that have so many different processes and they need to adhere to different compliance and governance, that lack of control that these AI agents in the market are basically introducing can be a huge risk. So,
Right.
how do you know that these virtual agents are actually going to follow your protocols, adhere to your policies and the government's governance? It can be really unpredictable and potentially detrimental to a brand if an AI agent actually goes rogue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you think about it from a perspective of a large organization, and they're talking about deploying something which is particularly kind of customer facing, and then um, legal and compliance get their hands on it, and they go and you see this like, oh, it's like a 0.5% or a 1% chance that there's going to be some sort of like variety in the kind of the response. They're a bit like,
Right.
hang on, tell me more about that.
Yes. And we've been hearing that, from clients where their boards and, leadership teams really want to get on the agentic bandwagon and deploy these, but then they have to pump the brakes
Yeah.
because there's so much risk, and you don't want to have thousands of agents basically running around and making up their own processes.
And so, so is the kind of that your approach, the kind of you talk about the announcement, and it's like say it's fundamentally different, but it's because it's leveraging kind of enterprise kind of like workflows. I mean, can you tell me about kind of that and sort of unpack that a little bit for me? Because does that then take the variety out of it and the risk out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And how I like to describe it is kind of what you said. We're really taking the best of workflow automation, which Pega has been doing for
Hmm.
over 40 years. And then we're combining it with the power of agentic AI to be able to transform every customer experience. So it is taking a lot of that unpredictability out of the equation. So it enables organizations basically to not only move beyond the limits of traditional chatbots and IVRs that, were pretty scripted and not able to converse in a natural way, but also taking workflows and turning them into predictable and reliable self-service agents.
But I guess if you're also going to tie it to this kind of workflows, and you talked about this predictability, you can also, I guess, in many ways, as if my understanding is correct, you can also kind of like measure and observe kind of how things are performing across the kind of the way, and you can break it kind of like down kind of more easy rather than it being a bit more black boxish, as it were.
Absolutely. Yes. So that black box AI that we're seeing is exactly what we're trying to, say is not the right approach for this. And really what, we need to be focusing on is that fusion of workflows, which gives you that predictability. It allows you to ensure that the processes that are, basically critical to your businesses are being followed. And then you're able to essentially instantly turn those workflows into conversational agents.
And so you talk about this conversational agents, but you talk about this agentic application because it's all kind of like it deal with kind of more complex kind of queries. I mean, can you help me understand like how far the capability can go, as it were? Like how complex are we going to be able to get, or can we get currently, and kind of where are we likely to be able to get to kind of going forward?
Yeah, and that's why I'm so excited about this is because these agents can really handle the same types of complex interactions typically managed by CSRs at really large organizations. So for, example, they can answer detailed questions while dynamically outlining multi-step processes for customers, and then they can actually go in and resolve the inquiry without actually, getting a human involved. So this could be managing something like a first notice of loss, which often, did require human CSR handling complex billing inquiries. And then these AI agents can really identify and the types of requests that are coming in and guide the customer through the entire process, and adapt to the conversation based on those customer responses. So that's really a unique piece of this too, because I feel like Oftentimes you could get super frustrated as a customer, where you're sort of halfway through a process and the chatbot is kind of working,
Right.
but then you throw it a curveball and you break the chatbot. So, that kind of goes away in this new paradigm of agentic self-service and the self-service agent. And what's really unique at Pega is, I think you've probably talked to Don Sherman and some of our other,
Yeah.
you know, members of the team about our center out business architecture. And this is really core to the self-service agent as well, where you're basically able to orchestrate those service workflows from an enterprise core and then use that semantic understanding that is so, kind of baseline critical of agentic AI. So you can really ensure consistent, scalable service across all channels. So it's not like you're just deploying this in a single proprietary channel.
Yeah, no, so I think that makes sense, particularly if you're a large enterprise and you're operating over different, on different continents and kind of like across different borders. And you might be making technology kind of choices that span those different territories. But actually, what's interesting to me, if I think about the communication preferences of different territories, are often not the same. Like, for example, you could have like an international organization that is operating in both, say, Europe and kind of the US.
Mhm.
And so people are maybe using web-based kind of like chatbots, and that's kind of one. You find that's kind of one kind of thing you can do that sort of deployment. But there is a complete difference between the popularity of, say, WhatsApp as a channel in Europe and WhatsApp in the US, which is not very popular. And actually, it's more messaging. And with the advent of things like RCS and all that sort of that sort of stuff, then that becomes almost like not necessarily it has the same capabilities of kind of WhatsApp. So you could almost like, as you're saying, the center architecture seems to me is that you can decide at an enterprise level at a core technological level, this is how we'd like to do things. And then you choose then to deploy in whichever kind of channel, and you have the same capability regardless of the channel, as it were, as long as it's got that the sort of the capability to be able to take those sort of interactions and
Yeah,
things.
I think we're really trying to make the channel sort of less of the focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really just about that core capability. And um, the other amazing thing with these self-service agents is that they can really dynamically shift to different languages as
Right.
well. With Pega Blueprint, you can actually go in today and build out a workflow, and then you can preview that workflow and turn it into an actual voice or chat self-service agent right there. And you can actually call your blueprint and have a conversation with this self-service agent that's following, the workflow that you just created. But if you start speaking to it in a different language, if you start speaking to it in Turkish or Spanish, it immediately picks that up and it starts engaging with you there. So it's pretty incredible too, just the multi-language support. Yeah, as we're talking about large brands that, work across the globe where there's lots of different cultures and languages.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think also the other thing, I mean, what I will say is a bit of an aside. I saw some of the enhancements to Blueprint that were announced at the Pega World this year, from the main stage, and I'm particularly I would point people in the direction to look up the demo that Kerem did about the ingestion of different data types to try and move from a legacy technology stack into sort of like reimagining things in the blueprint, where he did this like a talk through of a video of an old COBOL based credit management system, and then took that and chucked it into blueprint and it ingested it, and then it went, this is what it looked like in a modern sort of like workflow kind of, or a modern kind of agentic sort of like stack. And I was a bit like, that's cool. uh
Yeah,
and just
I have
because
that too.
yeah, just because it's like, that I think that it's interesting that the current level of commentary sort of suggests that like everybody's on the cloud and everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. You're like going, no, actually, there's a lot of people that are still working on legacy applications. I mean, I wrote a piece about this when it talked about the idea of what is it that only, according to Goldman Sachs last year, that only about 35% of enterprise workflows were in the cloud as of the summer of last year. And that's only expected to grow by another 15% over the coming 3 years. So up to about like sort of like 45, 50%. So there's still like a lot of work to do. And also another two frightening stats is like 70% of enterprises still rely on old legacy applications, including things like COBOL, written on COBOL, which is like COBOL's like 60 years old. There's like
Yep.
250 billion lines of COBOL code still in use on a daily basis. That's like mind blowing.
It really is. It really is. And what's so great about Blueprint is that, it takes so much of the time out of, having these discussions, and it allows you to actually just visualize what's possible,
Yeah,
which has really transformative for a lot of clients and prospects so they can get an understanding of how you can actually transition, to a more modern infrastructure without basically redoing everything.
yeah. So this is a new release, Pega self-service agent. It's like a new release, but as it always happens, you'll have been having sort of like a close core of people kind of trying it out in the kind of in the wild, as it were, over the last kind of like few months. I mean, um, what's been the feedback so far, and what are people kind of telling you about kind of like what they like about this new functionality?
So we've had great feedback so far, and we continue to hear from our clients that they are looking to automate more and more out of the contact center. So that trend is not going to stop. I think that, the reality is just based on our conversation on legacy systems that are still in play, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take time for
Mm-hmm.
businesses to really adopt this new agentic approach. But we've been hearing on a fairly regular basis that there is really this need to switch to self-service and make that sort of the primary spot for customer service. And in some cases, we hear leaders that are actually planning to reduce some contact center headcount.
Okay.
So at the same time, kind of like we talked about, we work with some of the largest brands on the planet. We also hear the concern that they have around governance and the control of AI. So Pega's approach of really combining predictable AI with workflow automation has resonated really well with our clients, and many are starting to raise their hands to become early adopters of this and are already experimenting on Pega Blueprint as well as with our other Gen AI and agentic capabilities. So we're really optimistic and excited about the prospect of self-service agent, and it's been great to hear that early feedback from clients. It's been awesome, at Pega World to see people actually going in at the innovation hub and building out their own blueprints and seeing it come to life.
Awesome. And when is it going to be on general release?
So it is coming to Pega customer service and Pega Infinity 25 in the early fall. So look out for that. But it is available now via Pega Blueprint.
Okay.
So if you haven't checked it out, go to pega.com/blueprint and you can see the amazing capabilities today.
Awesome. And so I wanted to just like zoom out a little bit and ask about some kind of just general kind of questions around your perspective on the kind of where this space is at right now, unless there's anything else you wanted to add around the new announcement with the self-service agents.
I guess the only other thing that I would say is just, aside from the governance and control piece, there's also this benefit of really reducing the amount of development time, which we
Mm.
know is so important as well. So, really being able to quickly build a workflow on Blueprint and then instantly transform it into a self-service agent and deploy it on your channels. It's basically taking months of work and, um, you know, moving that to days, which
Y-
is really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would sort of echo that the sort of thing around if anybody's ever done any sort of process improvement work where you end up having to map the kind of what is the as is and then the kind of the to be, as it were, and you find it's kind of hard to kind of get kind of like started because you end up with all this documentation, all these different sort of things. It's like going, haha. It just got easier because you take all that sort of stuff and you upload it and go, tell me how it is.
Yeah,
And then it
absolutely.
goes, ta-da. And then you can then start reimagining of how you would like it to be, kind of like, and with all these new kind of like features and things, and it just fast tracks that whole kind of process because you can when you see things, um, it's it creates momentum. It feels like.
Yes, totally. I mean, it basically instead of, having a white paper or a PowerPoint presentation where you're trying to understand a concept of how something will work, basically Blueprint allows you to actually go in and, try it yourself and actually, take that and put it into the Pega platform and start working from it. The other thing that I love about Blueprint is just how it's able to connect IT and business leaders.
Hmm.
So, really being able to collaborate and foster that design thinking is really, really fantastic.
And so that's brilliant. Thank you for that. And so I just wanted to kind of say because I'm normally I try really hard to get to Pega World, and I have been there for the last kind of like few years. But this year I couldn't go because I got floored by a bout of sciatica, which was just really painful. It was the first time for me, and it was a bit, well, it was a bit rubbish.
Hope you're feeling better now.
Oh yeah, no, it's much better now. But unfortunately, that meant that I just like the idea of a long haul flight to Vegas at the time was not, let's put it this way, palatable. Um, and so I watched from afar and enjoyed a lot of the kind of keynotes, but missed the innovation hub and talked to lots of people and seeing kind of what was going on the ground and and so what I wanted to ask was you were there. What were the main highlights for you, particularly from like a customer service side of things? What stood out for you?
Yeah, it was a great show.
Was it
It
hot?
it actually it was hot, but it wasn't Vegas hot. I actually think we had a little bit of rain while we were there, which was
Shock,
a unique experience.
shocker.
It, in Las Vegas in June where there was some rain. So, it wasn't too bad. But it was a really exciting conference. Lots of exciting amazing announcements, demos, client stories, specifically on the customer service side of the house. We talked about the Pega self-service agent where attendees had the opportunity to build their own blueprints. So that
Mhm.
was really fantastic. The other um, demo in the Innovation Hub that was really a great experience and kind of is along the same lines of putting people in the driver's seat and allowing
Mhm.
them to have a hands-on experience was our customer service simulator booth. So this is basically for a customer service rep or agent to be able to, instead of diving right into an actual customer conversation, be able to engage with an AI agent and practice using
Okay.
customer service desktop. So we had, I think, maybe 6 or 7 different desks where people could go in, put on a headset, and actually get into the shoes of being a customer service rep and engage with all of these different customer personas, some that were, very polite and others that were not.
Mm.
And people got pretty competitive about it, but it was really, pretty incredible to see how faces lit up when they saw all of the great capabilities that make it easier for customer service agents today. It was actually, I think the most attended booth at Pega World. So that was a really exciting one. Um,
Nice.
you know, such a wealth of client stories. That's one of the great things about Pega World is that most of our breakout sessions are also client led. We had a keynote from Verizon where they talked about orchestrating the future of customer experience with AI. And essentially, they're using our AI in decisioning as well as our customer decision hub to create what they call a unique version of Verizon for every customer.
Hmm.
Love that, kinda notion, and they're also using Blueprint to dynamically generate new case types where they're able to create automations, and they've seen some really amazing results, improvements in terms of customer satisfaction, average handle times. I think it was about a 20% improvement, um, but, if you did miss it, we missed you, Adrian.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
hope
you're just saying it. You're just saying that.
No,
Really.
we did. Hopefully you'll be able to come next year, but you can see all the replays at pega.com/PegaWorld if you weren't able to attend. It's a pretty great set of client stories, and I think that's the most powerful way to really understand how the technology is really impacting and transforming across industries.
Awesome. I mean, and then sort of like you, because the thing about kind of Pega World as well is because you get all sorts of different people that are sort of immersed in the sort of the whole customer experience, customer service kind of like world. And you also get like a pretty good view of kind of where the industry's kind of heading, as it were. And it's not just about sort of technology; it's just generally, but you get a general feel for where people, what people are seeing and hearing on the ground, and what they're driving towards and stuff. And I wanted to get your perspective on kind of like with all of that. What are your thoughts on where the service industry is headed, and are we just at the beginning with this agentic self-service tools, or what's the future gonna look like?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I do think that we're just at the beginning of all of this. So, based on the conversations that we've had with clients and prospects as well as partners, it's pretty clear that there's going to be this significant transformation as well as consolidation of the front office. We're already seeing that a little bit, but I think that's going to accelerate quite a bit in the next 3 to 5 years, where, contact centers and sales teams are still going to exist, but that being said, it's definitely going to become a much smaller function where some of these roles are going to be much more in the knowledge worker
Hmm.
type of space where CSRs are handling the most complex or emotionally delicate types of inquiries. And really, the front office is going to be flipped on its head. So that's one thing that I think is really going to shift, and agentic AI really plays, a pivotal role in that. And I would say, looking forward even in, 5 to 10 years, the vast majority of issues, whether they're complex or not, are going to be self-served,
Hmm.
and we'll see more and more proactive and preemptive service playing into that as well based on statistical AI and risk modeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I mean, so I think I agree with that, but I also kind of think people may listen to that, and one of the quick conclusions that they'll jump to is like, well, there'll be no jobs left for people, and
Yeah.
I'll be like going, yeah, but here's the thing. So these systems all need monitoring and managing, and at the time, and new knowledge needs to be curated and kind of quality approved and all these different sort of things. But also the other thing that we need to kind of bear in mind is that the number of products and services that most kind of brands kind of release is not going to shrink. They just keep adding new things. And when you add new things, there's a whole raft of new complexity and new questions and all these different things that kind of that you have to add on to this kind of like space. So that there's an ever evolving complexity that exists. And so I actually think that the role of people is going to is one is going to shift, but it's going to be there to deal with the variety and the complexity that is going to exist in this evolving sort of like space. And so I'm not. I do think the technology comes with choice, and we have to be very cognizant of the choices that we're making around the technology, what it enables us to do. But I think there's a lot that can there's a lot to be done by human beings if they grow and evolve their kind of like role and get the right support in doing that.
I completely agree. I think that just the types of roles are likely going to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you need to be curious as someone who's an employee or customer, and be open to those shifts.
Yeah.
At We're really encouraged to use AI tools to, augment our daily tasks, our work, rather than replace them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely in the camp that not everything should ever be completely automated. I think there are certain things that do require a human touch. That being said, I think that there is going to be a shift in terms of the type of work that a CSR is going to actually be doing when they log in for the day.
Yeah. No, indeed. Um, so Rebecca, that's it for my some of big questions. But if I may, anything else? Well, anything before I go on? Anything else that you want to highlight before I kind of go into some quick fire questions?
I think we covered it. Let's go into the quick fire question.
Right, quick fire. I've got three of them.
Okay.
First one is we've had a bit of a rummage around. We've talked about this, that, and the other. I want you to boil it all down. And how I'd like you to do that is to complete this sentence, Rebecca. And the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer experience, Rebecca says, do this. ... Complete that sentence.
Start with picking one or two workflows that have a potential to be automated. Maybe it's part of a claims process, and begin infusing AI and automation. Don't wait.
Full stop. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Second one is, now, this is a punk related one, so I couldn't not, because it's a Punk CX podcast. So here's a question. Which company or brand do you think is taking a more punk approach to customer experience, and why?
This is my favorite question. And I'll do it from kind of like a personal experience.
Okay.
So I really like the brand IKEA,
Okay.
aside from having to build my own furniture, where I often will need to recruit my husband or friends to do that. I'm just not the best at it. I think that they're great. It's fun to go to their stores. Um,
Do you like the meatballs?
it depends on the day. What about
Okay.
you?
Never sure. I'm
Yeah.
never sure about going into a furniture store and then sitting down in a cafe. It just feels like slightly incongruous.
Yes, yes. But sometimes they hit the spot. But what IKEA is doing, if we stay kind of in like this AI space, is that they're blending augmented reality and virtual reality to help let customers now visualize
Mhm.
furniture homes before buying it. So basically, you can get a sense of what your furniture is actually going to look like before you actually go into a store and buy it. Um, and I think that this is really great just from like a convenience perspective. It
Mhm.
also is saving some waste if you have to return something.
Yeah.
Where you get a sense of it. So that's super exciting to me. And also, their app offers sustainability scores. So you can get a sense of the type of furniture that you're buying, how sustainable it is, which, personally, that's important to me. So I love that we're starting to see these consumer brands embrace augmented reality and VR to really be able to transform the customer experience and the buying experience in a pretty immersive way.
Nice, nice. Well, I thank you for that, and I can't remember if IKEA has been on the list before, but it's now firmly on the list. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And final question before we wrap up. I've been doing this for a little while now because the world, for a little while now, or probably for a little longer than that, has been slightly weird
Yes.
and kind of odd. And news is dominated by kind of just like bad news, it feels like. So I've been asking people to share with me a good news story before we wrap up. So Rebecca, can you tell me a good news story? Tell me something that you've seen in the last week, which is like interesting, positive, or exciting. It's made you smile. You're going, the world. It's not all doomed. It's made me smile.
Yes. So I saw a story a few days ago around how the LA County, so Los Angeles, is
Hmm.
using now AI to proactively identify and assist individuals that are at high risk of homelessness.
Okay.
So essentially, they're able to use this technology to prevent them from actually losing their housing. And it enables them to be able to support with things like rent assistance and mental health care before it gets to the point where you end up, losing your house. And I saw a stat that it reduced shelter admissions by 71%. So
Nice.
that's a really nice story. I have a lot of family in LA, so I keep up with the news over there, and I know that they've had challenges in the past. So just hearing those stories of how AI is really, kind of contributing to the greater good really makes me optimistic and excited for what's to come.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a really nice story about how folks are applying technology to look after people,
Yeah.
which is nice. So thank you for that. I just want to say thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your expertise with me today. Congratulations on the whole announcement around the self-service agent. That sounds really exciting. People should definitely go check it out and check out it. Wait for either join the queue to get kind of like to talk to somebody at Pega about it, or check it out on the blueprint page, which is pega.com/blueprint, I think, and you can see it all kind of like there. But finally, yeah, Rebecca, thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I love ending it on a positive note.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, that's another interview in the bag. I just want to say big thanks to Rebecca Miller for spending time with me telling us more about Pega's workflow-powered agentic approach to customer self-service. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Now, but before we go, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. First of all, please consider heading over to iTunes, Spotify, or whichever podcast platform you choose to use to listen to these interviews on, and do leave a review. It all helps. Thank you. 2, if you have any comments about any of the interviews I do, or have any suggestions for topics that you'd like me to explore, or people that I should interview, then feel free to send me an email to hello@punkcx.co.uk. Finally, do head over to adrianswinsco.com if you want to find out more about how I work with clients in this space. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and do tune in again soon. All the very best. Bye-bye.